Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being here today. My name is Al Evangelista. I'm the president of the Pompton Lakes Volunteer Fire Department, and we're very happy that we could have this ceremony today marking the 50th anniversary of the line of duty death of Raymond Cahill. As you may know, and I'll get into it in a moment a little bit further, but this is his house. This is dedicated to him. And that's why we're having this ceremony here instead of down by the monument. And then we also did it in case of rain. So I'll just mention that. I'd like to begin with the invocation by Pastor John Burden from Pompton Reformed Church. As you may or may not know, Ray lies in rest at the cemetery at Pompton Reformed Church. We were there this past Tuesday night, which was the actual anniversary of the fire, May 14th, and we have a candlelight ceremony over there with just our department members and Ray and Ruth Cahill. So, Pastor.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be here today. It's an honor to be here for the family, for the fellow firefighters. So as we begin, let's go to God in prayer. Almighty God, we gather here today with our hearts full of reverence and remembrance to honor the life and legacy of a true hero, Raymond Cahill. 50 years ago, he made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty, embodying the highest ideals of courage, selflessness, and dedication. And today, as we remember Raymond, we reflect on the profound impact his life and sacrifice have had on all of us today. That his legacy as one of service and sacrifice reminds us of the incredible courage it takes to be a firefighter and to put your life on the line. We know that his dedication to his duty, even at the cost of his own life, is a testament to his character and his love for his neighbors and his community. And we also take a moment to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Raymond's family, that his memory, in some powerful and mysterious way, lives on through them, and his enduring love and pride goes on in them and their legacy as a powerful testament to the person he was. And as we commemorate Raymond's life today, God, we ask that you help us lift up our hearts and bring us together to honor all the firefighters who risk their lives every day to keep us safe. That their bravery and dedication are the bedrock of our community, and that Raymond's legacy lives on in every act of bravery performed by his fellow firefighters, in every life saved, in every home kept, and in every community kept safe from harm. And so as we gather here today, help us to see the meaning of all of this, and may we see the courage and sacrifice that it takes to keep a community safe, and that the courage and the sacrifice of Raymond and all firefighters here will never be forgotten, and may their legacy continue to inspire us. And so, God, we lift up this entire event. We hand it to you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor John. Some introductions at this time. I'd like to, first of all, thank the Pompton Lakes Police Department for being here with us today. It's an honor to have you here joining us in this ceremony. From Passaic County, we have our County Executive Committeeman for the New Jersey State Firemen's Association, John Lane. John, would you stand and be recognized, please? Thank you. Thank you for being here today. From our Mayor and Council, we have Mayor Sarah is here today, along with Councilwoman Kilberger, Councilwoman Kent, Councilman Cruz, and Councilman Venon. I don't believe I missed anybody. Okay, from Congressman Pascrell's office, we have his representative who will be making a presentation to the family. I'd like to introduce some guys that were there on May 14th, 1974, assisting at the scene of the fire. From our own house right here, James or Jimmy Titus Sr. Jim, where are you? He's in the back. Thank you for being here today. As you know, his son is now a captain with us here, Jim Jr. All right, Ralph Hook from Pequannock Fire Department was present that day. Thank you, sir, for being here. and celebrating with us. And I don't believe I missed anybody. Hopefully not. Yes. Stan Jacobson, one of our members, still today, one of our members. He was at the scene of that fire today. He was pretty much new in the department at the time, but he remembers that day well, as I do. I was not in the department. I was actually there as a special police officer that day, but I still knew Ray from his employment at the Board of Education. So I did know the gentleman, and it did bother me greatly. All right, so that's our introductions. I'd like to introduce our chief, Jason Eckers, Assistant Chief Dennis Daycake. And of course, very important people today. Okay, the daughter of Ray Cahill, Ruth, please stand and be recognized. Ruth, she's going to be speaking in a few minutes. She came all the way here from Texas, missed the big tornado that just happened, so we're glad she was here with us. And Ray's son, Raymond, just stand and be recognized. He'll be speaking in a little bit as well. All right, thank you. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of the history, but obviously after Ray and Ruth speak. So I'm going to call Ray up at this time to speak. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. It's good to be back home in the town where I grew up. It was hard for me to imagine 50 years ago at 9 years old that we would be here today, 50 years later, still talking about what happened to our dad. At the time, I didn't understand the full significance of what had happened. All I knew, I lost my dad. When Ruth and I were in the midst of it, I couldn't see or imagine this far into the future. I was trying to get through the day and thinking only of the future and as to how am I going to get through tomorrow. Then I couldn't see much past tomorrow. As I sat in what was once my mom's house in Alabama on New Year's Eve, watching the last minutes of 2023 tick away, I found myself thinking back to another time and place, and that was New Year's Eve, 1973. Which, looking back, seems almost like another world, and for all intents and purposes, for Ruth and I, it was. We were at our Aunt Ruth and Uncle Bill's house in Pequannock that New Year's Eve to ring in 1974, which 1974, an exciting time, it looked to hold a lot of promise. I remember it, and it stands out to me because it ended up being the last of the big family gatherings. We didn't know it at the time, but our world was about to change, and it was never going to be the same. A year ago, this past February, I started working for Allied Motion in Dothan, Alabama. A month or so after I started working there, I became friends with a man named Rick. Rick was a mechanic. He worked in the tooling department. And Rick was one of those types of people that never meets a stranger. At the time, he had been with the company 49 years and was planning on retiring this April at 50 years. On Friday, September 22nd, I saw Rick as I was leaving work for the day, and I said so long to him and have a nice weekend. I came into work the following Monday to the sad news that Rick had had a heart attack that Friday evening and passed away. On the inside of his funeral program was a quote, and this is what it said: "Those who died yesterday had plans for this morning, and those who died this morning had plans for tonight. Don't take life for granted. In the blink of an eye, everything can change. So forgive often, love with all your heart. You may never know when you may not have that chance again." A lesson I would learn 50 years ago when I returned home from school to the words, "Your dad's dead," words I was not prepared or ready to hear. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears, but said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth, and now only those who knew and loved them know what that little line is worth. An excerpt from the poem, The Dash by Linda Ellis. Now I want to tell you a little bit about our dad. Raymond Cahill was born here in Pompton Lakes in February 1926 to Lillian and Elmer Cahill. They resided at 20 Albert Street. Dad attended Lenox Elementary School, where I would later attend. At 22 in 1948, he joined the fire department and in October of that year became a member. He worked for the school system as a custodian, first at the high school and later at Lakeside Grammar School after it was built until his death. He married our mom in 1958. They resided at her great-grandparents' house on the corner of Legion Street and Lakeside Avenue. In May of 1959, my sister Ruth was born, and 5 years later, in September 1964, much to my sister's joy, I came along. Yeah, she was thrilled her first day of school, and she got me. From June 1970 until his death in 1974, we resided at 29 Willard Street. Our parents also separated a little later in 1970, and about a year and a half later, in February 1972, they divorced. From the time they separated until his death, Dad was a single parent to Ruth and I. He was our whole world. He was everything you could have wanted in a dad and more. We couldn't have asked for a better dad. I didn't realize as a kid until his death how much a part of our lives the fire department had become. As a kid growing up in the fire department, I only saw the fun side of it. I didn't see the dark side, if you will. I only saw the picnics, the parades, the dinners, the breakfasts, the Christmas parties, the wet downs, and the occasional ride in a fire truck. All of that shielded us from the fact that our dad and the men he served with were putting their lives on the line. The older kids maybe knew, but being as young as I was, I didn't see that side of it. Dad would occasionally sit my sister and I down and talk to us about his being a firefighter, what that meant, and also what could potentially happen. But as time passed and nothing happened, we didn't think about it anymore. We grew complacent until that day in May 1974. In the Bible, John chapter 15, verses 12 and 13, "This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." Every day with our dad was like Christmas. It was a surprise. We never knew what we were going to get or what to expect. Except for the time I broke a couple of windows, I learned very quickly then what to expect. Even gifts he got for us at Christmas and other times of the year were often gifts we didn't ask for. I don't know how Dad knew, but he did. Going into the week he died, we were planning and preparing for very different things. I was in Mrs. Sank's third grade class at Lenox Elementary School. Ruth was a freshman at Pompton Lakes High School. The school year was drawing to a close with about 5 weeks left. We were all looking towards summer vacation. That Saturday before the 14th, we had spent the day cleaning our front porch, getting it ready for the summer. That Sunday, the next day, we had spent part of that day washing and cleaning Dad's boat, because the plan was next Saturday we were going to take it up to Buzzy's Landing at Greenwood Lake, because most of our weekends during the summer were spent up there on Dad's boat. Ruth's 15th birthday was coming up, and the family was all coming over next Sunday to celebrate. Memorial Day was coming up, and we had all been invited over to our Aunt Ruth and Uncle Bill's house in Pequannock for a family cookout. Also, Ruth had been invited by her boyfriend Mark to attend her first prom. A lot of exciting things coming up, things we were looking forward to. That was the world in which we lived. But like it says in the poem by Robert Burns, "The best laid schemes of mice and men," although we didn't know it, it was all about to change. Tuesday, May 14th began just like all the other days before it. I know that sounds cliche, but that's the way it was. Ruth and I got up to get ready for school that morning, just as we always did. Dad was downstairs in the kitchen cooking breakfast and getting our lunches ready, just as he always did. Dad drove me to school that morning, just as he often did. I don't remember our conversation that morning or our last words, but I do remember him telling me He'd be there to pick me up from school that afternoon. We had gym class near the end of the day that year, and because it was a beautiful day, we were outside on the playground. I saw Dad when he arrived. Our last interaction was a wave. I waved to him, and he waved back. He had just parked his car in St. Mary's parking lot. We had just finished up from what we were doing and getting ready to go inside for the day, when at about 2:50 that afternoon, the sirens went off, that first alarm. That was the moment when the day stopped being routine and our world would change. The last time I got to see my dad was of him running up Lenox Avenue toward the firehouse, which was on Wanacue Ave at the time, dressed in his blue custodian's uniform. That image now burned into my memory like a video on an endless loop. Keep in mind, I was watching my dad do something I had seen him do dozens of times before, at different times of the year, at various hours of the day or night, irregardless of what the weather outside was doing. If he was needed, he was going, even though he didn't have to. There was no question, it was a given. I went to bed on the 14th of May and woke up on the 15th in a changed world. Now I would like to address all the new members of the fire department. Many of you weren't born yet when this happened. Some of you may even be new to the town and are hearing about this for the first time. 50 years ago, we didn't have personal pagers or cell phones. We didn't even have the term first responder. That term didn't come along until September 11th, 2001. But our dad and the men he served with, as are all of you, as are some of the firefighters and police officers here with us, were first responders. From 1901, when the fire department started, until today, only one firefighter has been lost in the line of duty, our dad. It is my hope and prayer that continues to remain so. The fire department motto, valor, fidelity, duty, along with all that is being said here today, is part of the history, heritage, and legacy of the fire department to now which you all belong. It is my hope and prayer that none of you will have to lay down your lives so that your families won't have to endure what my sister and I have. In short, folks, don't try to be heroes. To your families, to your friends, to those who love you, you already are. They may not say it every day, they may not say it at all, but you are. Our dad was a hero to us. He didn't have to die to prove it. On May 14, 1974, two men entered the Town and Country Market fire. They were Ed Semecki and our dad, Raymond Cahill. Ed Semecki made it out with injuries. Our dad became trapped and lost his life. I also want to mention here a brother firefighter, Ed Roach, who tried to go in and get our dad but was unable to enter the building. Honor the history, heritage, and legacy with valor, with fidelity, with duty. We're now passing this on to you. You're the future. You're the ones who are going to have to carry on the history, heritage, and legacy. My sister and I love all of you. Our hearts are always with this fire department, and to the council members that are here, with this town. Even though we're not here physically, we're always here with you in thought and prayer. Fairly recently, 3 of your fellow members learned how situations can change and how quickly things can go wrong. Thanks to God, prayer, and a quick-thinking brother firefighter spared Pompton Lakes, the fire department, and more importantly, 3 families from another tragedy, which drives home those words, don't take life for granted. There was about 10 years ago, around the time of the 40-year memorial, there was a poem posted on Facebook. I don't know who wrote it. The author's unknown. I shared it then and I share it now. The poem was written in the form of a letter, and it read, Dear Dad, I thought of you today, but that is nothing new. I thought about you yesterday and the days before that too. I think of you in silence. I often speak your name, but all I have are memories and a picture in a frame. Your memory is a keepsake from which I'll never part. God has you in his arms. I have you in my heart. To say that day was the worst day in our lives, or that week even, would be an understatement. When the funeral was over and everyone had left, Ruth and I were then left with the realization of what had just happened. Our Aunt Tut and our grandmother tried to get us back to some semblance of normalcy, whatever normal was going to be. They didn't know, and neither did we. And Ruth and I had to wonder if there was ever going to be a normal again and what that new normal was going to be like. As I mentioned at the beginning, in the blink of an eye, on a beautiful late spring afternoon, the compressors on the refrigeration units at the Town and Country Market kicked on as they had done many times before. But on May 14, 1974, they literally sparked a series of events that would change my sister and I's lives forever. We had friends whose dads were also members of the fire department, and it could have easily been any one of them standing here before you now. That has fallen to my sister and I. Why? You know, over the last 50 years, I've asked that question. As of yet, I still haven't received an answer. Maybe there won't be an answer this side of eternity. Maybe that will finally be answered when I'm finally called home. All things happen for a reason. God has his reasons. That was some of the things we were told, some of the things we were taught in church and Sunday school. That's when we have to accept faith. That's where faith comes into play. As I mentioned before in the beginning, I mentioned one part of it that plays back like a video on a loop. The fact is, the events of that day, that whole day, and that week play back like a video on a loop, and has for 50 years, and probably will for the next 50 years hence when I can finally hand it over to God and let God take it. In 1952, when Queen Elizabeth's father died, in her grief, she said, "We're just passing through. We're all born. We live, we learn, most importantly, we love, and then we go home." And I want to close out with the final words of that quote. Forgive often, love with all your heart, because you may never know when you may not have that chance again. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond, for those very poignant remarks. Ruth?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out today. It feels like every 10 years I get to come back to Pompton Lakes. Unfortunately, it's to remember that day 50 years ago. My brother pretty much covered all the details of what happened that day. So what I want to say at this point is thank you. Thank you to the Pompton Lakes Fire Department. Thank you to the town of Pompton Lakes. You know, you don't always get to choose your family. 65 years ago, tomorrow, I was born into this family. And I couldn't have asked for a better one. I love you all. After my dad passed away, I had a whole firehouse full of dads. I didn't have to explain that, well, where's your dad? Oh, the firehouse, they're all there. I couldn't get away with anything in town because somehow, some way, somebody would find out about it. Not only with the firehouse, but all the teachers knew him too. So I couldn't get away with anything. But, it kept me in line. And, well, maybe I learned a little bit how to sneak around, but, not too bad. But it's just, so wonderful what I've learned from my dad. Although I didn't know it at the time, everybody talked, my dad was a hero. He did his job. He did the job that he loved the most, and that was to the community of Pompton Lakes, and to respond with his brothers. But we always talk about my dad being the hero. He wasn't the only hero that day. The other guys that were at the fire that day, that worked that fire, that went in to get my dad, they are heroes. I remember and let me just go back, my husband was a Vietnam veteran, helicopter pilot. And being around Vietnam veterans, I learned to look in their eyes. And the feeling, seeing their hurt in the eyes, it's always there. Thing of it is, I remember seeing that. I just didn't realize it 50 years ago. It was in the eyes of all the men in this fire department. Some of them could never look at us in the eyes because every time they did it, it reminded them of what happened that day. But now I understand it. And what they went through, and ultimately what their families went through while they were dealing with the loss, it affected all of us, just in different ways. And I want everybody to know that, yes, we're honoring my dad, but I want to remember and honor all of the men, not just from Pompton Lakes, but all the towns that responded that day, that you all, and they all were heroes that day. Thank you, Pompton. I love you with all my heart. My heart is always here. My prayers are always with this fire department. I love you all, even though you guys don't know me that well. But we're here with you all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. A couple other thank yous. Thank you to Bloomingdale Fire Department, who is represented here today. And I want to recognize Bob and Nancy Schwartz, who provided housing for Ruth when she came out from Texas, because they're good friends, and they are here with us today. And Bob is an exempt fireman from our fire department, also served with Oakland prior to that. And he was a great firefighter while here. So thank you, Bob and Nancy. Nancy was also on the auxiliary, very active in the department. All right, a little bit of trivia. We'll try to lighten it up a little bit, okay? We're wearing the uniform that we're wearing today. I don't know if anybody noticed that we don't have our dark blue regulation blouse jacket on. And we're wearing what he's wearing today. That's one of the only pictures we have of Raymond. And that was at a parade. I found out just recently that was at a parade in Port Jervis that we used to go to in force years ago. Okay, and because he had that on, I thought it would be very appropriate if we dressed the same way. Our police department also followed suit. Thank you, gentlemen, because they are not wearing their blouse jackets as well. And we're here in our shirt sleeves, which was considered a parade uniform. The dress blues with the jacket is a regulation uniform. So we dressed down for that man, all right, so that we would be in solidarity with him upon his loss. Well, the firehouse was dedicated to him in the early 80s, and the plaque is right out in the foyer here, if you desire to take a look, and there's also a nice picture of the plaque in this firehouse. We've inscribed, in addition to that, just recently, in memory of Raymond Cahill, LODD, which stands for Line of Duty Death, 51424, and it's on the crew cab windows on our new tower ladder that sits outside. We did that because he rides with us every day. All right, his line of duty death was first memorialized in 1974 by the renaming of the monument at the intersection of Center Street and Hamburg Turnpike by our mayor and council. By ordinance, they changed the name of that little square there to Cahill Square. So if you see the sign up there, and it is up there very appropriately, we still maintain it as Cahill Square, but now this is the Raymond Cahill Memorial Firehouse, and it remains that way today. His name and his line of duty death medal still appear in gold letters on our active membership board. To your right, you'll see a board just next to that door, which has the list of our members on it, active members. He is there at the bottom of that list under Company 2 in gold letters. His name is in gold letters with his line of duty death medal, and that will remain there in perpetuity. He has ridden with us, as I said earlier, to this day and will continue to do so. Wright was born in 1926. I think you mentioned that. All right, the same year as our antique fire truck that you see very often throughout the year. Old number 1 is a 1926, okay, and he joined in was born in 26. There's a lot of number similarities here, okay, that he joined our department in 1948, and I believe he was 48 when he died in a line of duty. He served for 26 years. The numbers are interesting, okay? He was a very dedicated employee of the Pompton Lakes Board of Education, which you already heard about. And Ray mentioned our motto of valor, fidelity, duty. Probably a majority of this room doesn't know that motto came from the VFD, PLVFD, Pompton Lakes Valor, Fidelity, Duty. All right, that was our patch years ago, before we had the patch that we're wearing on our arm right now. It was a white patch, which is PLVFD on it, and from that, those members at the time took that motto, valor, fidelity, duty, and we've had that forever, for as long as I can remember, and then beyond. So Ray did not die in vain, all right? Ray did not die in vain because a myriad of changes have taken place in the fire service over the last 50 years that he's been gone. And I want to go through them very, very quickly. First of all, to start, when I joined in 1976, we had 150 to 180 alarms back then. Last year, we posted 322 alarms, and the year before it was even higher. So our responses have changed enormously over those years, and now with the new developments of Pompton Lakes, it's even going to increase. I'm certain of that. So we are here. We must remain strong. We have a good volunteer base of 60 members, and our Ladies Auxiliary is still active. They're here in the front row. Thank you for being here, ladies. And hopefully we can continue, because as you've read, I'm sure, all over the internet and newspapers, the volunteer fire service in our country, not just New Jersey and not just in our area departments, is suffering from a lack of manpower. And whether or not that changes and swings in the other direction, we don't know. Okay, the number of paid fire departments are increasing in New Jersey, part paid and volunteer, and unless our residents get involved, and it's a real community effort, and it was years ago, you know, the firehouse in the old days was the fabric of the community. All right, it's not so much anymore. People have their own lives, their own things to do, their jobs have changed, and this has changed the whole dynamics of the fire service. So when I joined, we had no state-approved or required formal fire training course. As a matter of fact, I was in 6 years in this department before I went to fire school. And I only went because I wanted to. I wanted to see what it was like. All of the training was on-the-job training. All right, our members took you under their wing and they trained you. Ray mentioned plectrons, sirens, and foghorn. We used to have the old Claxton horn on the old firehouse, which the neighbors really loved, even more than the sirens. But we had no pagers back then. We didn't even have portable radios when I joined. We got our first portable radio in about 1979 or 1980, and it was the chief that had it. Okay, now everybody, we have portables on every rig, multiple portable radios, multiple radio frequencies. Things have changed immensely. Again, for everybody, primarily on-the-job training. We had inadequate fire gear back then, without a doubt. We had canvas jackets, if you want to call them that, or turnout coats. We had rubber three-quarter boots that guys use for fishing, okay? We had leather helmets, okay? Weren't always optimum, but we had leather helmets. And we used to wear Red Ball plastic gloves. Now, some of the older folk here know that's what the oil delivery men used to bring to your house when they made their deliveries. They were bright red, they were plastic, and the worst thing you could ever wear into a fire. But that was it. That wasn't just our department, that was every fire department wore those gloves. Our gear was not stored as you see it here around the walls. So the firefighters come in, they get dressed, and they get on the apparatus. Back then, we carried the gear on the apparatus. And obviously, it couldn't have been everybody's gear, because when I joined, we had 75 members in this department in the old firehouse where Mac's restaurant is right now. And that was a big number of guys. So we had about 8 pieces of gear on every apparatus, and it was first come, first serve. And then if the guy put it back wet, the next time you had to use your gear, it was wet, if it was there at all. Our fire engines were gasoline. They weren't diesel. Gasoline engines didn't have the horsepower that was needed to pump large capacities of water. Okay, we had 750 gallon per minute, maybe 1,000 gallon per minute pumps. Today we have 1,500, with our newest one outside being a 2,000 gallon per minute pump. Okay, one of the highest rated out there unless you order a specialty vehicle. We had small supply lines back then. We didn't have 5-inch hose. That didn't come on board until like 1988. We were one of the first towns around to try it out, and we liked it so much, and we achieved so much with it, that we then followed suit and started purchasing that. Our small attack lines, and Ray mentioned that, they didn't give off a high volume of water. As a matter of fact, the line that they pulled was called a booster line. It was a red rubber hose, okay, which is only 1 inch in diameter. Okay, so it's good for your nuisance fires, dumpsters, garbage, maybe even a car fire here and there. But certainly in a structure, it's not good. So we have bigger hose. Negative pressure air packs. The most important thing that we wear is our self-contained breathing apparatus. And back then it was negative pressure, which meant if your mask didn't really fit properly, you would suck in smoke behind your mask and you would end up inhaling it. Okay, so today we fit test for our masks. Every person in here has their own mask on their gear. They have to take a special test, fit test, to make sure there's no leaks. And our new air packs today are positive pressure. So even if the mask gets dislodged, it will continue to pump out fresh air to push out the smoke so that we can continue to breathe. You mentioned pass alarms, which is an alarm that goes off if a fireman becomes motionless or disabled. Right? We could trigger them with another button, but basically back then, they were an addition that we wore on our gear. Today, they're integrated into our new packs, and we just got new air packs through the courtesy of Congressman Pasquale for the grant, $300-some thousand, and we outfitted the entire department with brand new, state-of-the-art Scott packs, okay, which we need to do our job properly. So today we've gone from 2,500 PSI bottles years ago. The new ones are 4,500 PSI bottles. Gives you greater time, it gives you greater volume, a little bit more time to do what we need to do. Because fires now are fully involved in 7 minutes compared to the houses that most of the houses we have in town from the 50s and 60s, when it took a good 15 to 20 minutes for the home to get involved. Why? Because back then everything was wood and textile. Today everything is plastic and synthetic. Okay? No questions about that. The MUA has increased the capacity of our water lines. Okay, we now have a 12-inch water main on Wanacue Avenue and other parts of town. We have a 16-inch main right out here that goes past the firehouse from the water tank into town. So they've made improvements, which helps us as a fire department. We have multiple channel radios. Years ago, when I started here, we had one channel shared by 5 towns. If you don't think that was chaotic when there was a fire in multiple towns or a storm that came through, it was crazy, all right? Battery-operated smoke detectors appeared. The biggest, I always say this, the biggest invention that ever changed the fire service was the battery-operated smoke detectors, which appeared in the United States at a reasonable price in 1965, and then they began to be installed in homes. Now, the first detector was made in 18-something, okay, but they were very expensive, very cumbersome, and the batteries didn't last very long. So really that changed the fire service immensely, because there are a lot of fires out there that occur that we don't even know about because people handle them themselves. We had no thermal imaging cameras. We had no 4-gas multimeters that checked for carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide, what's the other one? Oxygen levels, and so forth. So we've increased, as a fire service nationwide, we've increased so much over those years. We now have NFPA POSHA standards. We're certifying that our gear that you see here on the walls is all NFPA certified compliant. It's Nomex. It's resistant to burning. It's very expensive. To outfit a firefighter today, it's about $5,000, just walking in the door. Just outfit them with the coat, the helmet, the gloves, the bunker pants now, which we didn't have back in the day. A lot of guys got burned on their legs because there was no protection. These are the things that have become good. Now we got to wear hoods to protect this part of our necks because of the injuries, of course, that occurred. Let's see, diesel systems. All diesel engines now, you see the hoses hanging down in here, OSHA requirement. When a truck starts up, that exhaust must be sucked out through the fan that you see over my head on the ceiling. The pumps on the apparatus, I said, are now increased. AFFF foam. We have a lot of hazardous material out there. We carry foam on board every truck, all right, and our membership is trained in it. Hazmat awareness and operations, a lot of hazmat today. Things we didn't deal with 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Okay, but it's out there. It's up and down our highways every day. It's driving through our main street every day. Okay, it's on the railroad when that comes through every day. So we have the potential. We have increased potential. And the town has stepped up and met our needs in every situation as far as what we needed for this department. I commend them for that. And past councils have done the same thing. And that makes us feel good that the employer is giving us the tools that we need to perform the job that we're asked to do. All the fire pumpers and ladder trucks now are certified every year. Pump test, ladder test, even the ground ladders have to be tested. We didn't do that years ago. We never did that years ago. Now it's required annually. The rescue truck that we got, the first rescue, quote unquote, actually occurred a year after the Cahill fire because we needed some tools that we didn't have, and they said, well, they need the tools, now we need a new truck to put the tools on. And that's how we get started in the rescue business with extrication. We now have RIC teams. We now have swift water and ice rescue teams. Our neighboring towns have that. We work together. All right, we drill together for the greater good. The Passaic County Fire Academy actually began in 1992 with state-certified instructors now. No more on-the-job training, so to speak. It still occurs, but everybody goes and gets the same exact training. Okay, and the training that is issued in New Jersey is Pro Board and IFSAC certified, which means that 33 of the 50 United States in our country have the same exact training and program. We've had a lot of New Jersey firemen move south, and their certificate is just as good down there as it is up here. All of these things obviously changed because of firefighter deaths and injuries. There's no doubt about that. All right, we now have to get CEUs to stay certified. We have to go back to school, if you will. Another demand on these ladies and gentlemen's time, besides just coming here on a Monday night for a drill and answering the 300 some alarms that we do a year. And during storm events and flooding, we even get higher than that. All right, so we're hanging in there. You know, we're taking it day by day, but the changes in technology, as you can imagine, have just affected the fire service unlike you can believe. Now, just uptown, with all these new constructed buildings, it's not the construction that we were used to. Okay, it's not even balloon frame construction, which is the DuPont Village and the homes on Willard Street. All right, it's a new construction, which is lightweight truss construction, held together by metal gusset plates. You see the building uptown. It's all lightweight wood. Everybody says, shouldn't it be concrete? Well, if the building is fully suppressed with fire sprinklers, and if it has a fire alarm, by the way, which the Superette did not have, that Ray Cahill died in it, had no fire protection features whatsoever, and the Acme in Klugtown Shopping Center as well. No fire alarms, no sprinkler systems. Now today, any commercial or residential building project like we see uptown now is all going to be fully sprinkled, fully alarmed, and firewalls everywhere, which the other structures didn't have. So another big change in our town that is protecting us. All right, these are things, and I'm saying this, and forgive me, I'm taking the time today to not only educate the public, but educate our young firefighters, because it's a different ball game today than what we older members realized and participated in. We now have an incident command system that we must use by law at the scene. We have a safety officer, okay, and we send people to school. We encourage them, and the borough pays for some of these courses for us to go to school, all right, because titles don't make good leaders, okay? You don't get elected to a position and become an officer and then immediately get instilled with knowledge. That doesn't happen. Someday it's going to happen, okay, when they can figure out what they did with DNA, okay, and you know where we are with that, and retina, recognition. Someday they're going to be able to download your brain, okay, literally, and pass it on. So titles don't make good leaders make the title. So it's incumbent upon us to be trained, continue training for the new things that are out there, and keep all people safe. All right, I'm going to leave you with this very important statement. This is taken from the New Jersey Division of Fire Safety website. Okay, it's an article that they put on there. It's very important. All right, I'll leave you with this statement. We all know by now the firefighter Cahill died fighting a fire in a basement fire loaded with combustible paper products. That's what was down there. And all those buildings in those stores had a common basement from end to end of the building. So there were no firewalls in between to stop the fire if it was just in one store. It went from end to end. All right, we had a lot of departments there helping us that day, as you already heard. It had other accelerants down there, okay, which are oils, vegetable oil. It's an accelerant. It burns. So it was a food store. So there were a lot of things down there, and there was a conveyor belt on a staircase. I think you remember, especially the older people, they used to bring goods up and down on a conveyor belt on a staircase. Well, that conveyor belt was there that day, okay, and that was blocking access and ingress to get in and out of that basement. Another problem with the fire today. You wouldn't see that today occurring. Obviously, it had no fire alarm or suppression systems. Mr. O'Sullivan, in the fruit store right next door, saw smoke, yelled to his wife, call the fire department. He tried or attempted to put it out with a fire extinguisher. It was already beyond that point. Remember, a fire doubles in intensity every minute. Every minute a fire doubles in intensity. So here's what was written. All of the fire tragedies of the 60s, 70s, and 80s were major thrusts leading up to the November 1983 enactment of the Uniform Fire Safety Act. One of the aspects of that Uniform Construction Safety Act was, quote, and I quote right from their document, requires windowless basements, which that store was, windowless basement, to be alarmed and or sprinklered, and to provide fire department access into below-grade areas that do not have the sufficient openings of required dimensions. Okay, this section was enacted due to the death of a New Jersey firefighter as a result of a basement fire. The basement lacked appropriate access openings, fire detection and suppression systems. Do you think that's a coincidence that that line is in there? I don't. Okay, so God bless firefighter Raymond Cahill and his family. God bless you. God bless you all, and may you be safe as we go on in our mission. Thank you very much for listening, and we're going to go to benediction by Pastor John Burden from the Reformed Church. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, Al. Really appreciate that. Do you have closing remarks after this too, or is this it? Okay.
This is it in the fireman's prayer.
All right. Well, friends, is there one more thing? Okay. So, friends, I'd like to close with these words. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And may the living God turn his face toward you, and may he give you his peace. So, friends, may you go in peace, and everyone said, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Former Chief John Kidney is going to lead us in the fireman's prayer, which we say at the end of all of our assemblages like this. So, John, if you would just recite that for us, please? And then while I'm here, as soon as John is finished, Ruth has selected a song to be played that is very, very emotional. So, Congressman Pascrell. Johnny, I got to interrupt you. Congressman Pascrell's representative. Thank you. Come on up. I apologize.
It's okay. Hi, everyone. I am not Congressman Bill Pascrell. My name is AJ Ford. I'm a field representative with the Congressman's office. I'll be very brief. Thank you to the mayor and council, to the support of all of the Pompton Lakes Fire Department and Police Department that's here today, to Raymond's family. It's been great to hear about your dad. Thank you for sharing his story with us. Here I have a flag that was flown over the United States Capitol in his honor. I'm also, my father is a public servant as well. He's a police lieutenant, so a little different. But it's been really great to hear about your dad, and thank you so much for your sacrifice and for sharing him all with us. Thank you so much, and to everyone here, stay safe.
Okay, and then right after the song, you're invited for lunch in the back room. So please stay with us and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Our fireman's prayer. When I am called to duty, God, wherever flames may rage, give me strength to save a life, whatever be its age. Let me embrace a little child before it's too late, or save an older person from the horror of that fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to fulfill my calling to give the best in me, to guard my friend and my neighbor and protect his property. And if, according to his will, I lose my life, please bless and with your protecting hand my family and my wife.
Jeff, just hold up on the stool for a minute. I got another very important person to introduce, and that is Charlie Cadmus. He's sitting in the back. Charlie, where are you? All right, Charlie Cadmus is a great friend of the Pompton Lakes Fire Department, has always been, and he was actually there that day assisting the fire department to fight that fire. So we appreciate you being here today, Charlie. Thank you. Jeff, you're up.
Don't know where I was when I first heard that you had left for parts unknown. I struggled some to find the word to convince myself that you were gone. Where we go defies all explanation, and on my pain there came a revelation. Hearts will break, we cry, we grieve, we die, we go, but never leave. We linger in the lives of those we love. We're flesh and bone and beams of light. A body breaks, a soul takes flight, and faith is left to heal what tears can't touch. You're not gone, just out of sight. You're here with me, wherever you are tonight. I am better now for who you were. You always found the truth in me. More patient than this world deserves. Everything a friend should be. If heaven is our final destination, the love we leave behind is our salvation. Hearts will break, we cry, we grieve, we die, we go, but never leave. We linger in the lives of those we love. We're flesh and bone and beams of light. A body breaks, a soul takes flight. Faith is left to heal what tears can't touch. You're not gone, just out of sight. You're here with me, wherever you are tonight. We're flesh and bone and beams of light. A body breaks, a soul takes flight. Faith is left to heal what tears can't touch. You're not gone, just out of sight. You're here with me, wherever you are.